welcome to the midweek edition of Inside Nigeria. Sorry, we're bringing the program a bit late, just due to some circumstances beyond our control. But however, I'm here now to take you on review of some selected newspapers across the country. My name is Winifred Ubebo. I'm your host on the program. Unfortunately, we don't have a public affairs analyst with me today to review and discuss the cover stories. But however, we'll just be taking you on what papers are saying this Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. Welcome once again. As usual on the program, we are flagging off with Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership. What is leadership invaded with? Let's see. Let's have leadership on our screen. Leadership says new Naira notes NAS films as CBN insists on January 31st deadline. New Naira notes NAS films, that is National Assembly, films as CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, insists on January 31 deadline. Warns of crisis, demands 6-month extension, invites Apex Bank Bankers Committee. Warns of crisis, demands 6-month extension, invites Apex Bank Bankers Committee. Someone is not telling us the truth, says the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gbajabiamila. Look away from the elections. There's a leading story on leadership newspaper. But before we drop leadership, the leadership also is leading with other stories as well on its cover. Talking of leadership conference that is coming up next week, Tuesday, January 31st. It says leadership conference. Odinga meets with Senate President on Monday. Leadership conference. Former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga is to meet with Nigeria Senate President Ahmad Lawan on Monday, ahead of the 14th edition of Annual Leadership Conference and Awards coming up on Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Still on leadership, Constitution Amendment, lawmakers transit 35 bills to President. Constitution Amendment, lawmakers transmit 35 bills to President. The story is on page 10 of Leadership newspaper. And of course, banks collected 370.6 billion naira stamp duty, not 89 trillion naira in 7 years. CBN Governor Emefiele defends himself over allegations. PNB commissions Lagos Blu-ray orders grant state waiver. President Muhammad Buhari commissions Lagos Blu-ray orders grant state waiver. The story is on page 20 of Leadership. For more on leadership stories, you can log on to the website www.leadership.ng. That is all we are taking on leadership. From leadership, we're moving to other papers we have on our menu. Talking of this day. This day newspaper says Emefiele forecloses extension of January 31st deadline for return of old banknotes. Emefiele forecloses extension of January 31st deadline for return of old banknotes. The rider says National Assembly members kick. House of Representatives sets up committee to meet CBN bank CEOs on redesigned currencies. Apex Bank governor says about 1.5 trillion naira of old banknotes returned. Clarifies stamp duty rule, reveals 370.68 billion naira collected in 7 years, not 89 trillion naira, not as speculated. Audit underway. Declares currency redesign has slowed down kidnapping, ransom taking. Says no cause for alarm over CBN's exposure to federal government. MPC raises MPR to 17.5%. That's leading stories on this day newspaper. Still on this day, before we move on, let's have the story on the masthead. It says Buhari takes train ride after inaugurating phase 1 of Lagos Blu-ray line. Buhari takes train ride after inaugurating phase 1 of Lagos Blu-ray line. Witnesses signing of contract for construction of second phase unveils J.K. Randall Center for Yoruba Culture. Before we move on, there's another story underneath this story about the masthead steal. Federal government moves to end nationwide fuel scarcity, sets up 14-man steering committee. The story is on page 9 of this day newspaper. For more on the stories, you can also log on to their website. What next? We have other papers. We Essentially most of the papers today, Nigerian papers are talking about the story on deadline for submission of bank notes. The Guardian says old Naira notes, CBN insists on January 31st deadline, Sean's calls for extension. Old Naira notes, CBN insists on January 31st deadline, Sean's calls for extension. Denies scarcity of new notes. Senate urges CBN to subpedal. Rep seek review of daily withdrawal limits. Indume, as a senator, I haven't seen new notes. Mm. So many people have said this, including yours sincerely. I'm yet to see any new note. Learn from UK, Huriwa knocks CBN over last minute cash swap. Learn from UK, Huriwa, that is a human rights writers association, knocks CBN over last minute cash swap. I'll take the leading story once again on the Guardian. Old Naira notes CBN insists on January 31st deadline. Sean's calls for extension. And of course, still on Guardian, uh, the NIMET warns expect earlier than normal onset of rainfall floods in 2023. Dangote refinery not part of projects for Buhari's commissioning. IPC seeks safety for journalists ahead of 2023 polls. Buhari kills mom, commissions Blue Line raid, J. Randall Center. All the stories on the Guardian. For more on the stories on Guardian newspaper, you can also log on to their website. From the Guardian, we are moving on to Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard story says now CBN battle over old Naira notes deadline. Senate asks CBN to extend deadline to July 31st. Reps angry, invite bank CEOs today. Once deadline extended to June. January 31st deadline for old notes remains, CBN Governor Emefiele. Family rejects old Naira notes as bride price in Niger. The story is on page 9 of Vanguard newspaper. Still on Vanguard newspapers, travelers entering Nigeria must present COVID-19 vaccination certificate. Federal government. Travelers entering Nigeria must present COVID-19 vaccination certificate. Anger as Lokoja Varsity hikes fees from 56,000 naira to 188,500 naira. CBN raises monetary policy rate to 17.5%. Constitution review announce vows to governors and state assemblies reject local government autonomy. Constitution review now vows to governors and state assemblies reject local government autonomy. That is the stories leading on Vanguard newspaper. Wednesday, January 23rd, 2025, sorry, 2023. For more on stories on Vanguard, you can also log on to their website. The next paper on our menu is The Punch. The Punch is punching with the story. New Naira deadline, Kano, Ondo, Anambra depositors flood banks with old notes. New Naira deadline, Kano, Ondo, Anambra depositors flood banks with old notes. CBN Sean's National Assembly insists on January 31st cash swap deadline. EFCC, ICPC won't arrest huge depositors, Emefiele assures bank customers. Central bank officials, POS agents set up rural cash exchange points. Naira deadline, Kano, Ondo, Anambra depositors flood banks with old notes. This is the leading story on the Punch newspaper. Labour knocks governors as states reject local government autonomy. Hoodlums kidnapped 15 cows, kidnapped herdsmen, Yeta. Miyetti Allah. El-Rufai commends troops for killing 3 bandits. Above the masthead of the Punch, we have the stories. Federal government raises 14-man panel to end fuel scarcity. Interest rate hike, job losses, crisis loan warns OPS. Okowa short markets for Atiku rally, traders lament. The stories is on pages 32, 38, and 57 of the Punch. And of course, for more stories on the Punch, you also log on to the website www.punchng.com. Yes, we have the last paper on our menu, and that is Blueprint. Blueprint says 7 days to generate a 4 CBN deadline. Keke Napep, Okada riders reject old Naira notes. 7 days to generate 34 CBN deadline. Keke Napep, Okada riders reject old Naira notes. National Assembly seeks extension till July, threats over citizens' pains. Emefiele says 100 days enough to comply, raises lending rate to 17.5%. POS operators hike charges, customers groan, commuters pay more in old notes. Apex Bank selects First Bank, Access 3 orders for cash swap. Stories on page 6 of Blueprint newspaper. But still on Blueprint, above the cover story, we have another story just beneath the masthead. Constitution review. National Assembly bows to governors over local government autonomy. Constitution review. National Assembly bows to the governors over local government autonomy. Transmits 35 items to Buhari for assets. For more on the stories on Blueprint, you also log on to their website. Well, viewers, this is all we have for review this morning on some select newspapers across the country. My name is Winnie Kwedi. Don't forget, same time, same station, we have the same program Inside Nigeria tomorrow. Bye. See you then.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.